Right before the video starts, I just want to say first off, thank you all so much for 900 subscribers. That's absolutely insane and blows my mind. So first off, I just want to say thank you for that. And the other thing is this video, while I want to share with all of you, it's also kind of for myself. So that in years' time, I can look back and kind of, see this video again, see how my collection has grown over time. As it is, after all, my collector journey. And for the final thing here, I just want to say all the clips that I used in this video are not mine. They're from these channels here. You can find a link to all their channels in the description below. Thank you, and enjoy the video. What's going on, guys? Evil Dragon here, and I'm a collector. Might have been mentioned a couple times that I like retro gaming. Video games have been around for just over 50 years, and in that time, tens of thousands of games have come out for people to learn, play, but most importantly, hold dear in their hearts. As the biggest form of media in the world, bigger than books and movies and TV shows and music, I'm sure everyone has played a video game by this point. And if you haven't, I don't know what to say besides you have a life. So congratulations, because I don't. Joking aside, there's something for everybody within video games. You got multiplayer, single player, interactive choose your own adventures. Those are fun. First-person shooters, sports games, gambling games. If you enjoy something, there's probably a game for you. But for some of us, simply playing isn't enough. You want more, and that's where you want to become a hoarder. The nicer term is collector, but I wouldn't get mad at either. I mean, if you're entering someone's house, they start taking a look at your collection, begin to say something about you being a hoarder, be prepared. But what I want to discuss today is my own collector journey, essentially, from where I started and really began collecting games and systems and everything in between. So we go back to that fateful day in 2019 when I said, Mom, Dad, I want a TV in my room. And just like that, I had one. It was a spare we had kept. Nobody was using it. It was just an old CRT that was just in, one of the random rooms that was just not hooked up. So we hooked it up in my room with a DVD player, and that's all I could do. I could watch movies and TV shows. And it wasn't too bad. You can see the arrow show from the oldest picture I have set up here. And this is where I started to be continuously grabbed by the CW show's influences. And boy, does it show. I mean, come on. Flash and Arrow, they were good earlier on, maybe not now. But that was just the start, because that summer I went to heaven, or the closest thing to it, the Niagara Falls Comic-Con, for the second time. The first time I didn't pay too much attention to the games. I was just too busy looking at everything there. It was my first time there, from, the cosplayers and the comic books and, everything. It was cool. But now with my second time being there, it was different. I actually noticed the rows upon rows of video games I've never seen before. Small and big cartridges, GameCube cases, PlayStation 1 to 4 cases, different consoles, everything a kid who enjoyed video games could imagine. And I went home that day thinking, damn, I want something like that. But at the time specifically, an N64. My uncle had an N64 as well as a GameCube, and when going over for holidays or other events, to keep us occupied, we would play stuff like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, or Zelda. We would play Mario Kart, 64, all the good classic games. And, it was fun at the time. Of course, that might not have been really good, I mean, especially when playing with the World War I hand grenade, but having been grown up, I thought I could handle it. Now. I had also experienced the OG Pokemon games through the 3DS eShop, and even completed the Pokedex on both Red and Blue due to trading. But that was my current knowledge of everything retro. So for that holiday season in 2019, with both Xmas and my birthday being in the same month, I asked for an N64 and a few games, and a Game Boy and Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow, just one of them. Why those games in particular? Well, as previously mentioned, I had owned both Red and Blue on the Virtual Console, and I did experience that, but when I learned of a game called Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64, that you could transfer your Pokemon from the cartridge to Stadium, and then battle with it, I was blown away. I mean, something that could do all that and be older than me, it was crazy. So come that birthday in 2019 December, I received a Game Boy Advance SP with Pokemon Yellow and Ruby. Awesome. I'm a huge Pokemon fan, and, it was just really exciting to see that I can now play these officially with their original hardware. But a little tidbit, Pokemon Ruby, which I still have here, was reproduced. I'm all for anyone who wants to get a reproduced game. It's probably just cheaper. It just means that, Nintendo or Sega or whoever didn't develop the game, you just get the game from made by someone else, ported it onto a similar cartridge that can be played on older technology, but it's not the original game that was, made and manufactured way back when. But again, it might save you hundreds of dollars in the meantime. Again, it's just probably cheaper. But for me, I'm not about that. I just want the OG vanilla game that, again, I want to copy of Super Mario 64 from 1996. And, I own a real copy of Pokemon Ruby now, but again, back then, I had no idea it was a reproductive copy. This was during my first year of high school as well. So I was playing, Yellow and Ruby interchangeably at home, at school, whenever I could get the chance. But then we skip a few days towards Xmas 2019, school's over and nobody cares about that stuff right now because, this was all before COVID, which honestly made the timing a little bit better for me getting into retro gaming. And, this is probably also the reason why the pandemic was so much easier on me. I could just stay at home and do all this other stuff that I now had access to. Again, apart from the fact that I was a child with no legitimate responsibilities besides do good in school, you little I got that Christmas in 2019 a Nintendo 64, 2 controllers, and 6 games. The picture shows 7 games, so that's because, during the new year, I went ahead, I had a little bit of money saved up, and I ended up buying Pokemon Stadium for myself. And I transferred back, because that's what I really wanted to use Pokemon Yellow for, which is what I got. Being able to play Gen 1 on the big screen, and most importantly, again, bringing my Pokemon over to battle on the big screen in a semi-competitive format with AI, it was just awesome. But that, again, that Boxing Day, it takes a little bit of time to make sure we have time to do it. I set up everything to work for this old CRT and static. Alright, so I turned it off and on again. Static. Let's wiggle stuff around and change the channels, then boot it up and static. What the Yeah, I know now, having owned another CRT, that particular TV must have had something wrong with its connection, considering after unplugging the DVD player from the TV, it just stopped working altogether. I mean, it was pretty old after all. My guess, because when we put that TV into my room and left the DVD plugged into it for whatever reason, it must have either pulled something out from age or another issue occurred. I mean, this was 5 years ago, so I can't quite remember everything. But, anyways, now to actually play my Xmas gift, I would need a new TV. Again. So also on Boxing Day, after getting, again, Pokemon Stadium and all that, we headed out to the world of America, where I looked for a relatively small TV to fit onto my desk. That was given to me from a cousin. Then we saw it. A 28-inch TV for $50. That can't be right. Oi, Walmart employee, how come this says $50?
Oh, because of the Boxing Day sale and open box discount. Yeah, someone opened that, didn't like it, so they returned it.
I'll take it. And that's how I still have the TV to this day, the one I use for, again, filming now, just playing and movies and everything I have access to right now. I still have that exact same TV, and it was only $50. I didn't have a job, but it was saved up still. I still had a little bit of money saved up, and it was worth the cause. I mean, come on. Here's a quick tip if you're young and want to get into retro gaming, and maybe there's snow in your area when it's winter, see if you can shovel driveways, or ask around if you can mow someone's lawn. Pull weeds, something like that. It's what I did to build up cash to go ahead and start retro gaming. It worked for me, it might work for you, but there's a little free tip. There's more tips online for $200 an hour. If you want to get into retro gaming, I'm available there to help you out. Again, $200 an hour. But with the TV in hand, I rushed back home, set it up, and in that evening, I was playing Super Smash Bros. 64 by myself against AI. Yeah! So with all the N64 games and Game Boy games, I was busy for a month or so, until COVID hit. Yeah, I was insanely lucky to get all of this right before COVID, because now for the entirety of 2020, I was kept busy. 100% Super Mario 64. Beat Yellow with the team and then use it on Stadium. Beat GoldenEye, have friends over a couple times to play Mario Kart and GoldenEye and Smash Brothers and all that. I beat Mario Kart 64 by myself too, as well as Smash 64, got all the characters, all the maps, everything. I then messed around in Ocarina of Time, played it several times, different files, never really got too far, never beat the game, but I just enjoyed playing it and screwing around. All this took me to November 2020, where I applied for the fun of it into a lottery draw for my name to be drawn for a PS5. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, they were selling out fast, the store only had 3, and they were pulling names to see who could have the honor of buying one. Because again, they didn't want just people to come in and buy them all right away, they wanted to make it fair because they only had 3, so just do a draw, and in that first week, they'll sell them off to whoever wins the draw. And little did I know, I got a call saying I had won. And pick it up in the next 48 hours, and not only will you, buy the PS5, but you'll also get one of the free launch games. I went with my mom the next day, and I picked up my new PS5 with Spider-Man Miles Morales. And I played that game to death. I beat all of it, got the Platinum Trophy, everything, in that entire half week. It was such a good game. And yeah, I was pumped. And for the next half a year to a year, I can't think of a single person who also had one. I mean, I was still... it just seemed like nobody was getting these things, even though they were selling just as fast. I just got really lucky when I found mine. And the fact that I, still won the draw, it just baffles me. Christmas came and went for 2020, and I got a few more N64 and Game Boy games, my first since last year, again, a few being some of my new top 10 games, notably Pokemon Gold and Stadium 2. What a combo. Not only does, you can use Pokemon Yellow on Stadium 2 and Pokemon Gold, but it just increases the Pokemon by 100, all the new moves, the items, it makes, Pokemon a lot tougher with even harder AI. I still will pop in Pokemon Stadium 2 and just mess around and do battles with my own teams, or just go through the gym leader castles or everything all over again, because it's such a good game. But the other games I ended up getting were F-Zero X and a complete in-box Quest 64, which is cool. It was my first complete in-box game. And Paper Mario, one of my favorite RPGs of all time. That N64 first Paper Mario is absolutely amazing. Following this, though, was really when I wanted to continue collecting, and moving into 2021, I slowly started picking up new titles. Like in January, I was gifted by my uncle a complete in-box STARCRAFT 64, which I still have, and is still an absolute amazing game. I mean, it's a blast for sure, I'm sure, when it first came out all those years ago. But now on the N64, playing with friends and family, and still playing with friends now, going against them where, I got to teach them how to play, and then we go against each other and battle with the Zerg or the Terrans. It's a ton of fun, especially when you're trying not to screen cheat. But anyways, then in February, I bought a reproducted copy of Mario Party 2, which I didn't know at the time. And really quickly here, if you want a way to show how if your N64 games are real or fake, at least not going down to, the circuitry you want to see from the outside shell of the cartridge itself, here's a quick way. One thing is the screws on a lot of cartridges, whether SNES, N64, NES, stuff like that, they will be plastic on a fake, but real on a real N64 cartridge. That might be one way to tell. Another way is the little engraved numbers, which is the serial number that came on all cartridges. They're usually on the back here, so you can see on the real one it has the 2 numbers there, and on the fake one it does not. You can also see maybe the artwork is maybe more stained or scratched or scuffed up on a real copy, as it's 20 years old, 25 years old, whereas on a reproduced fake copy, it might be more glossy, more shiny, the colors might be a little bit brighter, not less saturated, stuff like that. Or even as well, you can see the eye might be more of a different shape than the eye on the real copy, stuff like that. And then in March, I bought Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. A fun first-person shooter, but super tough and tactical. Wait a minute. Anyways, I then bought my first ever lot of games, ever, right off eBay. And it was these 4 games here. Super Mario 64, NASCAR 2000, Virtual Pool 64, and World Champion Racing, which I've still never played. I got it years ago, and I haven't played it just because it was not the reason why I bought the lot. I wanted NASCAR 2000, as I wanted something else for a racing game that wasn't Mario Kart 64. Superman 64 was a nice bonus because, hey, who doesn't want the worst game of all time? And just as well, I picked up Virtual Pool, and while I didn't give it too much credit at first, when I played it, it's just a super chill pool game that has, like a bar-style background and just chill, relaxing music that you can just play by yourself or, again, with friends. It's just a nice, fun game. And as someone who enjoys chill, laid-back games, a month later, coming in April, I picked up Harvest Moon 64. I loved Stardew Valley, so why not get this? Again, it's very similar, just less content, because of course it's older, but it was still a ton of fun. I ended up getting 5 years in with my playthrough, and I did a ton of stuff with Harvest Moon. What a game. But by this point, it was the end of my grade 10 year, June was here, and I got a GameCube. From my uncle, once again, he gifted it to me with Smash Melee, Mario Sunshine, and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. All fantastic games, especially Melee. I've never played any Melee tournaments. I have played Ultimate tournaments, but Smash Melee tournaments, just playing that game, grinding it out, getting all the characters, it was a ton of fun. And by this point, my collection had grown quite a bit. But I was keeping my Game Boy games in a small little cupboard at my desk, and my N64 games in these 2 small little chest things. One, for multiplayer games, one for single player, and they were just filling up too much. So I decided I wanted a shelf to store things on after watching the Scott the Woz video. Shout out to Scott, thank you for the idea. And I entered the world of Sweden. I also stole that joke from him. IKEA has everything from tables to shelves to beds to a restaurant, everything you could possibly need to live. And I'm sure you could live here if it wasn't illegal, but don't take my word for it, give it a go. I guess I gotta read this for legal purposes, but I don't condone attempting to live in an IKEA. Evil Dragon does not take any accountability if you actually attempt it. Anyways, I decided to head there with my mom, and after a little searching, I found it. an IKEA Billy bookcase, to my size and liking, colored black because that's badass. Took it home that day, built it. My mom built it, full credit to her and thanks to her. And here's what it looked like when full. I changed it a day later to this, something to, a little bit more full. I hadn't put the GameCube up yet, and while I did put my 3DS and my DS games up, now, it was all of them, everything up there. Plus the Wii and Wii U games. So now here it was, more full, and over the coming months, from the summer to Black Friday there, I just kept collecting more games. I took a whole shelf of books off and put video games in there, added a little mini shelf. Come Black Friday, I ended up buying another Switch, as I currently shared mine with my younger sibling. But I wanted more time to play, the newer Pokemon games and just replay some stuff. But again, having to share, it was just a no-brainer with a job now. I could just buy my own Switch, so I did just that. It was on sale for Black Friday. It was a limited edition one that just looks cool, and I still have that Switch to this day. Put it on this shelf picture here to kind of show how much more full it was getting. Come my birthday in December there, it was really cool. I got some cool games like Battle Tanks for the N64, or come Christmas from all my different family members and whatnot, I got a lot of cool stuff like Mario Kart Double Dash and a Super Nintendo, which is now the next console I had in my whole collection there, which was very neat. Bunch of different games for it there. And then I asked on that Boxing Day of 2021 to rearrange my room a little bit differently because of the fact that with how my room was arranged, if I wanted to grab a book off my lower shelf there on the whole game bookcase, whatever you want to call it, it was kind of tough as it was squeezed between my bed and the bookcase, so it just meant it was a really weird feeling having to reach down there and I couldn't really see, I couldn't bend down or anything. So I rearranged my room to look like this here. And I have two different photos, one without the Super Nintendo and one with the Super Nintendo, as it was taken as the Super Nintendo was still hooked up, and then I unhooked it and put it on the shelf, whatever. So there are those two photos there. And this is kind of how my room has stayed now, even into the future. Of course, with more, you'll see a comparison there. We'll get on that a little more into the video here. But that was cool. That's how it went entering 2022. But after the Super Nintendo, I still kept collecting come every now and again, a couple of months, I would buy games. Come March break, my dad let me in on something unique. A coworker of his was getting rid of some stuff, and since he knew I collected video games, he gave me his old NES with Mario Bros. And the Duck Hunt collaboration cartridge. That was really cool, being able to play the OG Mario Bros. Was a lot of fun. And while I would have to wait 3 years, I would eventually be able to play Duck Hunt 2. More on that later. But now with a job, being in my third year of high school, my grade 11, I still didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't even have a phone yet, so I set out to find my next game console. Maybe a little bit too quickly after the last two, being the Switch and Black Friday of November, and then on Christmas I had the Super Nintendo, but I looked for an Xbox 360 with a few games. Red Dead Redemption and its DLC, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, Skate 3, and for all its dumb fun, Dead Island. I won't lie, even now I'm not a fan of Dead Island. I think Dying Light's more my style, as it's a lot more fast-paced, but that's just me. But I was a big fan of the second Red Dead game, so playing the first was amazing, arguably better because of Undead Nightmare. Undead Nightmare is absolutely fun. Add in being a big Fallout fan, thanks to 4, now I could play 3 and New Vegas, which was a great time. And still with the pandemic slowly getting better, I still just had a lot of time to play these games. I beat all the Fallout games, Red Dead 1 is Nightmare, DLC before May, which is where I bought a PSVR. I think I recognize now this is probably a mistake due to the PSVR 2 coming out later in 2022, but I wanted to play FNAF VR pretty bad. Like I said, I still didn't have anything really to save up for, so I bought a PSVR with an Iron Man bundle, so it was an Iron Man game. I bought Surgeon Simulator, FNAF VR, which we've done a couple videos on, and then 2 Walking Dead VR games, Saints and Sinners and Onslaught, which are both a lot of fun. I've beaten almost all the FNAF games, even 50-20 mode and Ultimate Custom Night, small flex, but VR is still the one I haven't beaten, and I haven't played too much about besides, the 10th anniversary videos I've done on them, because I'm terrified. Just even The Walking Dead, you hear the noise cues and whatnot, and, you're used to it. I'm not used to seeing 8-foot-tall animatronics peeking their head out and walking down the hall, and I could peek my head into the hallway in FNAF 1. That VR game is still terrifying to me, which is why I won't continue playing it, besides for content, when I gotta suck it up and do it. Anyways, I grabbed some more Xbox 360 games right before school, a couple more NES games at a small convention, which was cool. And I'll pause here to give a tip on game collecting, as it definitely seems like I'm racking up quite a bit of stuff for the collection, but I'll explain really quick here my tip here. I think my biggest tip here is if you want to get into collecting, especially while you're young, it's probably better because you don't have as many, major responsibilities and whatnot that come with being an adult. Again, I was just a kid, and I mentioned several times, I'm going to keep mentioning it, that's why I could afford to buy all this stuff, again, I didn't have any big responsibilities besides do good in school, go to work, get my job, get my paycheck, and with that money, again, save up a lot of it, but also use it to buy for what I want, which was video games and stuff like that, and consoles and stuff. And then I also relied again on family members for big events, Christmas and birthdays and certain stuff like that. I relied on that, and that's where my collection grew as well, just to all my family members and whatnot. Quite a big family, which is cool. I'm very thankful for that. But I think that's the biggest thing. If you're going to get into game collecting, especially while you're young, it might be better to start there because, again, you just don't have as many responsibilities. You can save up your money for that, for what you want to do. As it's, you probably get a job when you're younger, a teenager. It's now your own money. You're making your own money, and you can use it on whatever you want there. That's probably my biggest tip for when getting into game collecting. Because, again, even now I know I've had to slow it way down. Looking at my script here, it's so weird right after that tip, because then I said, yeah, I entered my final year of high school, and in the first month I bought Worms Armageddon for the N64 for a very high price. Looking at those games, I mean, it's a rare game, don't get me wrong, but wow, it's just so weird to go from that tip to, again, now I have to, save my money. It's very weird, very different in the last 3 years here of my own life. But yeah, and it is a very fun game to play. What was I thinking at the time? I don't know, but I bought it, still have it, and like I said, it's a fun game. And that's what I mean when games can be pricey, especially for the N64 and even more the GameCube currently. Supply and demand. The OG copies of these games are quite limited, and if people want them because they're reaching the age of nostalgia, then they'll buy them. And this definitely, refers to the biggest hits on all those, again, GameCube, Xbox, PS2, so the old God of War games, Halo, Pokemon, and Mario, and Metroid, Twisted Metal, even starting with the PS3 now, with the old Uncharted games, stuff like that. All of these games are going to be very, very more expensive going currently, and then as we go older, because the people who played them 10, 15 years ago are not going to want to re-experience that feeling, and so all of the, again, supply and demand, it'll just go up. The demand, so the supply not being limited, it just makes everything get more expensive. Basic economics. And yeah, you can emulate or maybe buy the game on a newer console, on a newer version, kind of like Gears of War. Again, the original was 2006, and now they just released it on PS5 and everything, so you can, play it with better graphics and everything. But I think some people, just like me, don't see it as a waste or, as a hunk of plastic or as an older downgraded version. Instead, we see it as a way to experience when we first started playing or when other people in the past first started playing it with the original hardware and the original controller on an original TV, stuff like that. If you're collecting to just have it and not play it, kind of like how people spend thousands of dollars on sealed copies of Pokemon cards that not use in tournaments or sealed video games to never open and play, to me, I don't quite understand that. I'm from my own collection, I'm not going to buy Barbie's Magic Rainbow Castle because I'll never play it. But even a $400 game that I want to get eventually and I'll save up for and set my mind to it and, set some aside and keep saving up till I buy it, I do it because I want to play that game. I don't want to just leave it on, again, my shelf, just look at it as a trophy. I want to play the game. I want to experience it. But due to this expensive purchase back in, September of 2022 there, I agreed I wouldn't buy anything until after Christmas, which seemed fair to me, resave up, make all that money back. If I'm going to buy something, like a console or even a video game now that's expensive, even now from the, I learned that lesson back then in 2022 and I still do it now. If I buy a new console or I buy a really expensive game, I don't typically buy anything for at least a month. I give myself that giant gap to make it all back and then some, so that I'm trying to teach myself responsibility. It's a really good thing to do, and I recommend it again. If you want a rare game or a very common game, like say even like a Mario game that's just expensive because everyone wants the Mario games, buy it, go ahead, do it. But just, then take the time, save up, don't buy anything for a couple months to make that money back and then some. So you're still up, if that makes sense. Anyways, Christmas 2022 was here, and again, I got a whole selection of games to play. And also due to needing more space now on Boxing Day, I headed back to IKEA to buy another shelf, as seen here. It was smaller, but it fit nice, and all my game boxes from over the years, I could just cram into the small space still between my bed and the shelves, which is cool. My dream of having a room dedicated to gaming was pretty much here. Yeah, it was my bedroom, but you work with what you got. Nothing of note really happened though, going into 2023 here. I picked up some random games like Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem, a great game with interesting horror and fourth wall breaking elements. I did a video on the sanity system a few years ago. Check it out, the link in the description below. It's again, or even just buy the game yourself and experience it. It's a ton of fun. A small increase in my collection, but then, come the end of July, I picked up two very hard games to find, for me personally in my area, Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Some of the best and toughest Pokemon games of all time. They were a ton of fun, I beat them both back to back, and these two are the reason why I started watching VGC Pokemon. Because of how tough the games were, especially the end bosses, I looked up VGC footage on specific Pokemon, and even at the time, for those old VGC competitions and whatnot, to just see and try and learn certain movesets for certain Pokemon, or what combinations would be good, as you have such limited Pokemon you can use, and a lot of them are good. But, you know, just finding old videos of what was good at the time and whatnot, it really helped me beat those games, and that's why, even now, I enjoy watching VGC. But as I kept picking up more games, like a real copy of Pokemon Ruby, finally, once again, I had a real copy, not just my reproductive version, I noticed that even though I'd started collecting basically in 2020, or right at the middle of December 2019, my N64 collection, the console I had grown to, cherish and has become my favorite, I picked up a ton of games for it. Even funnier is this is one of those consoles that has such a small library, but it's so diverse in all its different genres as well. You want FPSs, it's got FPSs. You want party games, it's got party games. I already did a video on this, link in the description below. But yeah, there's the reason why it became my favorite console. Moving on though, a little bit later after buying the Pokemon GameCube games, and buying some N64 games as just shown, I bought a Pokemon GameCube on a really good deal. I was given a deal for it, and I said, why not buy it? I do want to eventually get several GameCubes, and the biggest reason why is for a Mario Kart LAN party. LAN parties have always been a thing. Well, they're not as big now. You can just play online, hop online together with friends. A Mario Kart LAN party with 16 people, 4 different GameCubes, 4 different TVs, everyone playing together would be so much fun. I hope to be a part of one day, even if I supply like half of it or all the stuff. If I can even find that many people, it still just would be amazing to be able to do that. But moving on after this, I didn't really buy anything, as I had to cut back a bit until Xmas 2023, where I got another big selection of games with a brand new addition to my console family, an Atari 2600. This was awesome, owning the first console ever. Yeah, you guys can go away. As I was saying, the first console ever, it was cool to see what video games were nearly 50 years ago. From stuff like Frogger and Asteroids to, Jesus, is that Donkey Kong? Yeah, it looks way worse than the arcade version, but it's still fun to play even now. The Atari is one of those things where you hook it up on occasion, play it for a bit, and set it back down again. None of the games can hold a save file, most are score-based, unlike, certain games like maybe Adventure or so. But it's really just like going to an arcade. You play stuff, and then leave again, going back sometime in the future. But to actually play the thing, I also received a CRT TV, and this was super cool. Look at it, it is so cute and tiny. I love this little guy. This is also big for me, as I can now have 5 consoles hooked up at any time. I can have the Atari, the NES, and the SNES through the RF port, and something that runs through the AV port on the CRT, also an AV port on my normal TV, and then 2 HDMI cords, so like a Switch, or my 316 PS5, stuff like that. So having now a whole bunch of different choices whenever I want, it's awesome. Also, if I'm playing a game like Marvel Rivals, or Siege, or Dead by Daylight, and I'm just waiting in long queues for, say, 2v8 for Dead by Daylight, I can always just hook up my second TV, turn it on, all that stuff, and just play something lightweight, which makes it even better. Kind of like how some people have 2 computer monitors. Maybe sometimes, one for chat and one for their main game if they're streaming, or maybe you're waiting in queue again for a game for, again, maybe 2v8 on PC for Dead by Daylight, and you're just running something else in the background on your second monitor. It's cool. But it was nice, and I needed someplace to put the CRT TV, and so I put it underneath my desk for a good bit here, until I changed my room again. Foreshadowing. Speaking of a room change, I got another shelf. It was one we had downstairs that wasn't in use anymore. It was black, which matched with what I had going on, and it fit right underneath my window. A perfect fit for my room. I loaded it up with all of my Skylanders that were just sitting in a bag, because I thought it looked cool, and that is how 2023 came to an end. But starting 2024 off, here's just a random photo of my XD team that I used to finally beat the game in the new year. It was cool. But that wasn't the biggest thing that happened. Oh no. I ended up getting one of the greatest games ever made after a copy was found from one of the local game stores. They called me first, told me about the game, and when they told me what it was, all I said was sold. I had obtained Earthbound, one of, if not the greatest RPG of all time. People who have played Earthbound love it, people who know Earthbound love it, and heck, collectors all around enjoy the game. So I knew I had to pick it up back in January of 2024, and I still haven't found time to play it. But still, hold on, it's an unfortunate thing, which I've mentioned before, and maybe I shouldn't be mentioning this tip so late in the video, but collecting is very easy. You spend money. But when you actually do it, it takes up so much time trying to play all the games you buy. I have an ever-growing list of games that I haven't played, which sucks, and it keeps growing because I keep spending money. So I recommend anyone collecting, potentially, again, if it's for you, slow it down. That way you take your time playing your games. I think I'm far past this own tip of mine, but if you keep buying games and even buy several games at once, you won't have the time to play them all like I have. Earthbound is one of those games that I still want to hook up, still want to play, and I will eventually, considering how I know how great it is. But it's just something that I've learned is that sometimes when you're collecting, slow it down a little bit. But anyways, after buying Earthbound, I continued to buy random games like F-Zero GX, or one of my all-time favorites, Stellar Blade, which released last year. I'll spare the details as I've done a few videos on it, but you can check that out in the description. Also, in one of the game stores I went to, I came across a copy of Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut Complete in Box. This thing blew my mind as it's a literal gold bar worth upwards of like $10,000 that I was able to look at. It was cool. These things are basically artifacts. The short and sweet version of it, it was an updated version of Clay Fighter 63 1/3, as it fixed some bugs and stuff in there, added some new characters and, battlegrounds and whatnot in this fighting game, but it was only rentable at Blockbuster. Of course, when the N64 stopped production and Blockbuster went under, all these games that were already limited use, as maybe the stores may only had a couple, they kind of just fell out. Plus, maybe some got broken, something rotted away, all this stuff that could happen. So these games are extremely rare, especially complete in box. So it was just cool to see it. Then, come the summer, I went to Niagara Falls Comic Con again, for the first time in a few years, due to COVID, of course, being gone now. And now that I was actively collecting, it was awesome to be able to talk to a ton of different people who were actually surprised to see such a young collector. This is the haul I got, and I thought it was pretty good, getting Nintendo's last M-rated game for the GameCube. I got Geist. Also, Wii U Minecraft, another Minecraft collection. That's one of my own little dreams in my collection, is some people have their own separate goals when they're collecting. Mine is just to own every single version of Minecraft. I'm still a ways away, but there's another one into the collection there. Then shortly after this convention, I went to another, the Toronto Expo. And it was pretty cool, honestly, for my first time there. It was like nearly double the size of the Niagara Falls Comic Con. And so, of course, there's a lot more vendors. I bought a lot of different games. Some of the more notable standouts being like a complete in-box Star Wars Racer, or even an Atari 5200 Mario Bros. Copy. Well, I can't use it. It was like $5 to $10. It was super cheap. I was like, why not buy it? Because that's one of those really cheap games that would just be cool to have, even though I might not be able to play it for quite some time. And that's how pretty much my summer ended, except that there's one other big thing I bought, which was a set of Guitar Hero. Just the guitar controller for the Wii, and the Guitar Hero 3 for the Wii. Now, of course, the two pictures I have here don't quite show that. My games for Guitar Hero, or at least that are games that are compatible with the guitar controller, have grown. And now, even in 2025, they've grown even more to having like Van Halen or Metallica Guitar Hero, because I love both those bands, specifically Van Halen. They're amazing. But at the time, it was super cool. It's just another fun game that you can play by yourself or with friends to just rock out, trying to get the highest scores, trying to play through the fire and the flames on it, which is super tough. But yeah, I'm really glad I got one finally, as that was one of my end goal things that I got. But like I said, that's how my summer ended. And then we entered the fall, which is where I made a video about buying an OG Xbox. It was the next console I wanted to get, and the current console that I bought, the newest one that I've bought. Obviously not quite new, but you all know what I'm trying to say here. And I made a video saying what game should I get for it. I feel like I should have done this way earlier for all the other consoles I bought, like, the GameCube and whatnot, even though whatever, I already had one, blah, 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 whatever. But, the Xbox was just the first one where I was like, why not, let's just do it, try it out. People gave me some really good ideas for games, and whereas the game stores I went to didn't have the games that were suggested, like Conquer Live and Reloaded, they did have one game that was suggested to me, which was Half-Life 2. Being a buggy mess, or just how it runs and it's supposed to run, still, it was fun to buy, and while I haven't played it yet, it's just one of the notable purchases that I did make. Another one I ended up getting was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. A very fun fighting game with in the fighting game genre. A welcome breath of fresh air away from stuff like Who's It's over here. And so far I've enjoyed the OG Xbox. And while I know eventually I'll pick up the PS2 or PS1 for like Twisted Metal or God of War, I am happy I chose this first for Halo. What an experience that I miss, of course not being alive at the time, but getting to play the original campaign with everything feels awesome. When I get around to Halo 2, I'm sure it'll be just as good, and hey, my copy came with an outdated 7-Eleven coupon. Score! Coming towards the end of 2024, I slowed down my collection due to the purchase of the Xbox and Christmas, and of course school being in half a year here, or I guess another year, but I did buy another game shelf, or rather a game cubby. I wanted something that could hold all my consoles and have them at the ready, so I can just hook them up and unhook them whenever I wanted. And so I bought this, and it fit exactly what I wanted perfectly, especially since both my TVs and my PS5 all fit on the top nicely. It's worked so well, and I'm so happy that it fit my room entirely. This does cement, though, pretty much everything I can have, though. No more room for any more shelves. But with this new edition, again, Christmas 2024 came a month later, and with this new lot of games, notably the final Guitar Hero games, as previously mentioned, Final Fantasy VII, 2600 games like Donkey Kong Jr., which speak for themselves. Yeah, these games are so goofy. But we entered 2025, where not a lot has happened for me, as I knew I had to save up this entire year. I think the biggest thing would be that I bought these end labels from this seller here on Etsy for my N64 cartridges. Because, you know, I just thought they looked cool, and the whole reason I wanted these was because these damn N64 carts don't have end labels, making it really hard to know which game is which. Like this Mega Man 64? No, it's fucking Mario Party. So yeah, with having these and being up to date, this is what my collection looks like as of March 2025, and then I finished the script in April. And now it's September, where a little bit more has happened. I did go to the Niagara Falls Comic Con once again, and while I don't have a picture of my whole collection or games that I bought from there, here's some of the notable standouts, being Red Dead Revolver, finally the last Red Dead game, not quite Red Dead Redemption, but the last Red Dead game that I needed and really wanted to play, as well as the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. This is quite a rare one, as it contains all the original classic Zelda games for, you know, the NES, the SNES, Ocarina, all this stuff. So that was kind of cool to have. But yeah, that's kind of where I am going September 2025. I took some final pictures here, what my collection looks like overall, all my shelves, and then of course my cubby system. And I'm just happy that I got to share this all with all of you. Now, going into probably eventually 2026, like I said, for the next couple of years here, buying video games, buying consoles, it's going to slow down a ton, because of course I'm in school now again. That has to take priority over my hobbies such as collecting and unfortunately YouTube making, which is why this video took me so long to get out. It was quite a long video, having to write out the entire script and whatnot, and edit the script, having to go back when I started to make this about 2 weeks ago. But again, finally I'm happy I got this video out, and I'm glad I got to share my collective journey with all of you, and a couple tips here and there. But yeah, once again, hope you guys did enjoy nonetheless. Maybe leave a like, maybe leave a nice comment down below, maybe hit that subscribe button, retain that little bell. Thank you all so much for 900 subscribers, and I'll see you all next time for another retro video. Bye everybody.